Hey, it's Aaron, the Metal Theologian. Right on. I can't very well sit here in silence and try and do this shit, right? It's funny, you know what I would have put on if it weren't a major label? Fucking this record right here. And I'll tell you something, when I'm done making this, the first song I want to hear is Love Having You Around, because fucking... This record took a little while to grow on me. I feel like in a way, like if you compare this record, Music of My Mind, to Talking Book, which are probably my two favorite Stevie Wonders, although I do love Intervisions, man. And these are like the biggest records, but that's just the way it is, you know? Can't always break out the obscure one as like the best one, you know? I feel like with this one, I needed a little bit longer to sort of appreciate what he was doing with the electronics before the songs sort of came, you know what I mean? And that doesn't mean these songs aren't great. I mean, we're comparing it to Talking Book, right? So like these songs are so fucking top tier that are, you know, that I'm sort of comparing these songs to, that, you know, if one set takes a little bit longer for me to come around on the other, I don't really think it's a slight against, you know, either or both. All right, so yeah, so I think the topic is going to be, I was going to say top 10 records, so that would imply that I put more effort into actually figuring out this list than I did. Just like 10 records that I got really good deals on. Okay, so I was thinking about this last time. When I was making that video answering those questions, I was thinking, you know, once again about the idea of talking about how much records cost. You know, because I don't like to talk about how much records cost, generally speaking, just because I find the whole topic kind of, you know, I say distasteful. That makes it kind of seem a little bit more sort of like I look down on it more than I actually do, because I understand that it's sort of a part of the deal. You know what I mean? If you collect anything, some shit's going to be worth more than other shit. That's just the way it is, you know. And I happen to collect records, so the expensive things that, or the things that I buy that would say are expensive, that would seem crazy to someone who doesn't collect, are going to be records. You know what I mean? If for you it's stamps, then you probably don't collect records. You know, it's fine. I don't give a shit about stamps, though. They're kind of interesting. Anyway, it is fun to talk about getting a deal. And, you know, since, you know, this is sort of an older collector channel, right? This isn't like I started collecting 2 weeks ago or a year ago. This is a long time's worth of experience. You always hear stories about like how great the deals used to be on records and shit like that, which is, you know, there's some truth to it, but it's not entirely true either. You know, it definitely tends to be overblown. In fact, categorically, one thing I'll tell you absolutely is a fact. I was record shopping through the 90s, and the best deals that I ever got, like out of the amazing records that I show that are metal records, where you're like, holy fuck, I can't believe it. I'm like, you don't believe how little I paid for it. 70% of that shit was from the early days of eBay. I'm not exaggerating, man. A ton of that shit was. Like, basically all of my shit that's canon, that isn't like the basic shit that I was already able to turn up in the 90s. You know what I mean? Like, all the early Creators, all the early Sodoms, all the early Destructions, you know, all that kind of shit. And all the Living Death, and all the fucking, you know, just staying with Germany, the early Exhumer, you know, like all sort of brand going down, like, the reason I have like most of the early Noise catalog in my collection, and the Metal Blade catalog, and the Combat catalog, and all that shit, is because of the early days of eBay. Because in the 90s, yeah, I was looking for it, and I would grab it when I found it. I found a copy of Running Wild. Oh, maybe we should have pulled that out. I found a test press of Brandon Exiled at Rasputin's in Berkeley for like $4. So, you know, there were a few things that I already had, but for the most part, man, the early days of eBay are what really changed sort of my concept of a rare record from what it was in the 80s to what it is today. It wasn't the 90s, I'll tell you. So anyway, that said, this is 10 records I got really good deals on. I made a couple of rules to make it a little bit harder, okay? So all these records, I paid $10 or less for. Some of them I can tell you exactly how much, some I don't remember, but I remember like a ballpark, like pretty close in all these, and these were definitely all $10 or less. I think they were all less than $10. Like, I think the most expensive one in here was $6, but I'm going to double check myself as we're going through. So that's the first rule, you know what I mean? It's like, if I found a record for, I mean, this would be another video too, but if I found a record that was on the wall, well, this happened, the fucking Villain record, Only Time Will Tell, I think it's called. They only made the one EP, Villain from San Francisco. It's a fucking great EP. It was on my top records of 86 list. It was at the bottom of that list, but still, you know, it beat a lot of higher profile bands than Villain. I found a copy of that record on the wall at Amoeba Hollywood, and they had $50 on it. And I thought that was actually at that time recent Cult Metal Classics reissue that they had just overpriced. But I went and looked, and it was actually an original. At the time, it was already like a $400 record. So that's one of the best deals I've ever gotten. But I had to pay $50 for the record, even though it was a $400 record. So I'm trying to go for shit that maybe wasn't quite as high dollar, maybe some exceptions, but were all less than $10. Okay, and the other thing is I tried to stay away from shit where that was just what it cost when it came out. You know, like my copy of November Coming Fire by Samhain, right? I bought that, you know, when it came out. I have a first pressing because the second pressing didn't exist yet when I bought mine, you know what I mean? So it's like I bought whatever was like the import price for a record at the time, which was a little bit high, but it was like, you know, like in the record store when it would have been in Marks anyway. But in the record store, it was like $8.98 or $9.98. It was like that. You know what I'm saying? So shit like that I left out because it just seems like if I just bought something new and just held on to it and then someone wanted to give me a lot of money for it, that's not the same thing as finding a deal. Okay, so these are deals that I found, and in most of these cases, I knew I was finding a hell of a fucking deal before any time passed. I'll actually show one exception to that one because I wanted to show this one, but I don't actually have enough 45s. But this is kind of a cool one. Here's the City of Flames 45 by Saber. And apparently there's a picture sleeve for this, which was so rare as to be practically non-existent. I didn't believe it did exist until I saw that Alan over at Let's Talk Metal actually has one. So I have seen a real one, not just a picture of one. And on camera, but you know, it was a real person holding it and shit. But I'm thinking a stupid AI joke because I'm like resisting the urge to go down that path because it's just a little bit too. It's sort of like Among Us jokes, you know what I mean? Like Among Us, it's over. Like let it stay dead. Except AI isn't over; it just feels dead. So anyway, this is a Saber City of Flames 45. And this thing, I didn't realize how great it was. I basically got this because it was so cheap, I couldn't resist. So, I love this thing now. At the time, I didn't appreciate it a whole lot. I'll actually throw it on for a fucking minute. Because why the hell not? It's fucking... You're not going to hear it anywhere else, realistically. Unless you look it up on YouTube, maybe, or something. Although, if you're looking for a copy, I do wish you the best, you know? I don't have to be a dick, but, Actually, I'm kind of making this whole video to be a dick a little bit, you know what I mean? Because that's sort of the deal here, is like, I don't like to talk about how much I spent on shit, because I don't like lording it over people. If I did spend a lot on something, I don't want to like lord it over people if I didn't. But I'm going to make an exception today. And lord it over, y'all. It's funny, actually I haven't played this in a while. One of the songs is a lot better than the other one. I don't remember which one was the better one. But it doesn't matter, because I thought it was judgmental as I was when I was like 16 or 17 I bought this. So anyway, if you look this thing up on Discogs, on the page, at least last time I looked, it actually said something to the effect of, it was only ever sold at one record store in Cleveland. And the store was Chris's Warped Records, which is actually in Lakewood. And that actually is where I bought this thing. So I don't know what kind of distribution it got. I'm not one here to say, to stake anything I'm not one here to be, to just unquestioningly accept something that some rando wrote on Discogs just because they wrote it on Discogs. But it is true that the only copies of this I've seen for sale were at that place. And by the time I went for this one because they had marked them down so low that this one was down to $0.25. So I paid $0.25 for my copy of the Saber City of Flames 45. And if you look it up now for sale, it doesn't go for $0.25 anymore. I think it's fucking solid though, man. Alright, so it's not all metal today. It's a fair bit of metal because metal's a lot of what I was looking for, but yeah, these are mostly metal. In fact, I was going to show this one last, but I'm just going to get it out of the fucking way because this one's kind of almost This is almost a joke that I'm including it, okay? But I have to show this again. Because this is kind of the greatest one ever, right? This is, for anyone who's new, this is the copy of Yesterday and Today. You know, a partially peeled butcher cover, so a 2.5 state. And I got this at a thrift store in LA for 50 cents. So yeah, I stood there in the store looking at it, thinking it's kind of all downhill. It's all downhill from here. And I actually found I found records where there's a greater differential between what I paid for it and what it was worth, but not one where even non-collectors know it, you know? So anyway, Rachel, that one's for you if you're watching. Otherwise, though, there are a lot of H's here, because I happen to find a lot in the H. I'll just tell you right now. Yeah, my copy of Don't Meddle with Evil by Detroit's heavy metal horror show, Halloween. Fucking classic record. Not my all-time favorite of these sort of like obscure private pressings, you know what I mean? Metro America distribution, right? Motor City Metal Records, wearing the Detroitness on their sleeves in every way they can, you know? Singer's a little whiny for my taste. The hooks there, the sound is maybe a little bit glammy for my taste. But dude, overall, this is a great record. It really is. And I think I did absolutely the right thing when I found this at a shop in Austin, Texas, and grabbed it for, I'm pretty sure it was $6 for the Halloween record. Yeah. So you can start molding. That's one of my favorite Zoomer slang words, by the way. Alright, here's one I got in LA. There's a record store in LA called Record Surplus, which I think is still there, although I'm pretty sure they've moved. They used to be on Pico, and I used to live around the corner on Barrington. And so I went there kind of all the time, and I found there are a couple things in here from their dollar bin, okay? And there's also a lot more shit over there from their dollar bin. And there's shit that from their dollar bin that I've sold online. But one thing that I've kept and intend to keep, I actually think I got this the first time I went in there, but this is the Argus record. And much like, you know, all my favorite bands, they're kind of nobodies. I mean, if you haven't heard of them, don't feel bad. But now that you've seen that mustache, you need to remember him. Was the 80s. Mustaches aren't as well represented. This guy has a little bit of one going on, but, you know, I think we have to look to the bass player to deliver on that front. Anyway, not the greatest cover ever either. But this is a nobody band from Tampa, apparently. Somewhere in that area. Somewhere in Florida that isn't Miami or Jacksonville or Orlando, except, no, they do have an Orlando address. Too many addresses. Okay, Argus. It's a rockin' record, man. Solid metal, no keys. The songs are just great, and like, it's 4 songs, and it just doesn't let up, man. Like, there are records that, okay, so this is not a dollar record, okay? But I haven't priced it in a while. I don't think it's not like a $500 record or anything like that though, too, either, you know? If you come across this or have a chance to hear it, man, this shit is really good, and there are records that are worth a lot more that are a lot less good. So fucking Argus, yeah, I found that and I was like, yeah, I think I need to be a regular Record Surplus. Actually, I'll tell you something else. I'm not sure if it was the same trip or not. But I went there and they had a copy of the first T-Rex album. And I went up and sort of and it was like, I don't know, there was a little bit more on it than I wanted to pay. And so I sort of sheepishly went up and like asked if they could get it, you know, asked if they'd cut me a little bit of a break, and they knocked it off like $5. And afterwards I spent probably $1,000 at that place. So if you're working a record store and someone asks you for a little bit of a break, at least be nice to them. Don't be a dick to them. Yeah, this is the B-side. This is kind of the heavier one. I'm totally down with the City of Flames though, too. Alright, what we're talking about, this is another one that came out of that same dump section at Record Surplus. And by the way, there are records there that I did spend a few bucks on too, so it wasn't just this. So, yeah, but this one by Hawaii. It's a private pressing version of The Natives Are Restless on Shockwaves, which I'm pretty sure was independent. I mean, if you look at this label, first of all, look at the quality of that cover art compared with the version on, what was it, Axe Killer it came out on in France, I think? I mean, look at that. Yeah. The little sticker thing is a little bit of a bummer, but, you know, it's actually just old gum. I tried getting it off with Glue Gun, though. Never any luck either. But you know something? This band took me a long time to warm up to. I thought this record was kind of lame for a long time. I ended up getting the first one. That was kind of lame. And then I got Loud, Wild, and Heavy. And that one I really liked. So I went back to One Nation Underground. I still thought it was kind of lame, but I still really liked Loud, Wild, and Heavy. So I went back to One Nation Underground, sort of, you know, like once a year, every year or two, like I sort of do. I talk about this shit, right? If I don't like a record, I'll still go revisit it periodically. Unless there's a good reason to just write them off. You know, like if they have a really stupid name, you know, yeah, if they have a really stupid name or something like that that puts me off, or a really shitty cover, you know, that might change. But anyway, so I eventually came around on One Nation Underground, and I was like, maybe I should try The Neighbors Are Restless again. I put that one on. I was like, you know something? This record's really fucking good. So I am there with Hawaii. I'm not the biggest Hawaii fan on the planet. But they're a cool band. And if you come across this thing for $1, you should definitely grab it. Alright, so here's one that's not metal. So, not so long after I moved to Charleston, South Carolina, my old receiver died. And I was like, oh shit. So, you know, and I'm not like one of these fucking audiophile fucks, right? I go on Craigslist, right? Find a guy who has it, and he wants like $20 for it or something. So I go check it out. It's fine. We sort of hang out and bullshit for a little while. And it turns out there's a closet full of records. He's like, oh yeah, you can take whatever you want for like $1 a pop or something like that. There's probably a lot of shit I should have taken, but I also didn't have a lot of money at the time, so I was really stoked to be able to get a receiver for $20. But among the dollar records was a copy of this. It's an original press of the original Super 8 album by the Upsetters. Now, I personally prefer the return of the Super 8. But this one, well, this has been reissued a lot too. You know, if you don't mind like a Jamaican pressing that the folks at Island probably wouldn't be too fond of. You know, but it's cool to have an original list because there aren't really a ton of original reggae records out there. It's not like you look for Fleetwood Mac records, there are just millions of them, you know. Unless it's Bob Marley, you're going to be searching for a while. So this is actually the only, I'm not sure, I was going to say this is the only copy I've ever seen in the wild, but I don't know if that's true. And I don't know if this guy's house was really the wild anyway. Anyway, I got this for $1. Fucking great. Here's another one from Record Surplus. This one did not come out of the dollar bin. This came out of the regular bin. But I did find their copy of this gem by the Italian band Danger Zone, Victim of Time. And this record is fucking so rockin'. I mean, these guys look really funny, okay? It's like, so like, make your peace with that right now, because I'm just gonna put this on for a minute. Because I think you probably get the idea about Saber anyway. And nobody ever talks about Danger Zone. I think I'm gonna make another video soon about records I haven't seen other people show in the vinyl community. Because I did one of those a while back and it was fun. And this one wouldn't qualify for that because I'm pretty sure Alan has it and has shown it. If it's not Alan, then it's someone else. But there's at least one other one of these. Chromie D might have a copy. Anyway, check it out. This is a test press. How about that shit? Who the fuck has a test pressing of the Danger Zone EP? The fucking metal theologian, that's who. No, I just got lucky that day, man. Seriously. But if you ever see that cover, I mean, it definitely looks more like a hardcore record or something like that. And those guys look so fucking goofy. If they faked you out, I wouldn't blame you. You know, I just happen to have read about this record. But listen how fucking good this is. It rocks. Like if you're Bip Bop Boom, this is right up your fucking alley. Eric Bauer, there's no reason not to like it, even if this guy is fucking playing on it. And singing, no less. Hey man, if it works for Graham Bonnet, it can work for Massimiliano Merlini, sorry. Alright, no more from Record Surplus, but there's one more that I bought in LA. And that's this one. I got this one at a parking lot sale at Rhino Records in West Hollywood. And I paid a quarter for it. You jelly, bro? I'm not the biggest King Diamond solo fan ever, right? But this, I think, is easily the best record. And, you know, if you say that's because it's the one that sounds the most like Merciful Fate, I'll say, yeah, you're right. Because it definitely is, and that's definitely why this is my favorite King Diamond solo album. But that said, this is my favorite King Diamond solo album. I'm fucking stoked that it only set me back a quarter. So we touched on Amoeba Hollywood. Here's another one from Amoeba Berkeley. Can I say another one? I think it's like the first one from Amoeba Berkeley, but I bought a lot of records there. So as some of you might know, there's a guy named Mark Slaughter who was in another band called Excursion, which is very good, but not incredible, and is probably a little bit overhyped due to the presence of the same Mark Slaughter, who was in a bigger band with his own name in the late 90s, and, you know, who gives a shit about that, right? So as sort of, you know, Striperish as this looks, probably Angelish more than Striperish. This is a really solid rocker of a record. It's really good. Maybe I should go this on for a minute, too. Oh, what the hell, man? Why not? I don't think I've ever played any Excursion on this channel before, and I probably have, like, Danger Zone. So the funny thing about this record is I'm pretty sure this one cost me $3.95. I know it was right around $4. But the funny thing is I actually found the record twice at the same shop for about the same price. So that record that I paid, like, it was either $3 or $4. I think one time it might have been $2.95, the other $3.95. I'm pretty sure it was $3.95 both times. But yeah, I actually had 2 copies of this. I did sell one for a lot more than $4. And frankly, I don't know if it's worth as much as like I sold that one for as far as the quality of it. But it is a really cool record. You know what I mean? And like if you come across a copy or have a chance to hear it, it's worth sort of having around there, you know? It's a little wimpy, you know? Sort of doing the Meatloaf thing a little bit there, with the sort of wailing guitar in that way. Alright. Just organizing my shit here a little bit. Okay, so the next one I actually found here in Charleston. And this one, at least for my audience, this is probably the most obscure record. See, this kind of rocks, doesn't it? Like, if you like Girls' School, there's no reason not to like this band. You know, as far as the wimpy factor goes, I suppose. It's because it's really not wimpy. It just sort of has a little bit of sort of a wimp edge to it in places. Okay. This one I actually left the price sticker on. Alright, so this one might be the most obscure one for my audience, but this is a very rare record, and I'll just let you look it up yourselves. There's also a really cool hard rock record by Drywater. And this is JTB Records. Well, there you go, obviously a private press. And this is more like a 70s rocker. It's 1974. So it's funny, I used to talk about this kind of music a lot, but I'm not so much anymore. Just I haven't really listened to a lot in the last several years. I gotta be careful with this thing, I don't want to get a seam split. But yeah. $3. And yeah, it's not a $3 record. If you found it for $300, you'd probably be lucky. But it's a cool record. If you've never heard of Dry Water with an E, seriously, and there's a reissue. I've talked about the Void label before. Void Records put out a really nice reissue. I don't know if he still has copies, although he'd be the first place I'd look if I didn't already have one, which I do. And I mean a Void version, not this one. I got this one because I had the Void version, so I knew it. Yeah, anyway, fucking worth every penny of $20 on one of those fucking things will set you back. Dry Water is great, okay? Alright, so that's 9. So here's the last one, and some of you are probably going to maul the hardest about this one. So, like a lot of teenagers, when the Garage Days Revisited EP came out, as a teenage Metallica fan, I was all over it. Being maybe a little bit more fanatically inclined than some of my contemporaries, though. I was kind of the one who went out and like sought out the originals once I realized they were covers, right? Like first I was like, why do these sound so different from Metallica songs? Then, oh, who the fuck are these people with the songwriting credits? And like, on that fucking record, I'll tell you, Metallica's done a lot of things that were cool, like with the way they're distributing their records now and shit. But the way they credited those original acts was not cool, because I had no fucking idea back then who Tatler Harris was, right? Obviously it's Diamond Head, obviously now, right? Anyway, I went out looking for as much of that shit as I could, right? That's why when I found a copy of In For The Kill by Budgie, I immediately snapped it up. Actually, Chris's Warped Records, same place where I bought that Saber 45. And also, one day I walked in there, and they had, by Holocaust, the Nightcomers LP, which I could tell was going to be the coolest one. The live one, which is the one with the small hours on it, although I didn't know that was the only version of it at the time. And then also No Man's Land. So I got all three for $6, $2 a pop, and which was cheap even then. Okay, I don't know why the fuck they sent Holocaust records out for $2. I guess I thought nobody cared. Anyway, yeah. So at this point, I didn't know that there was no studio recording of the small hours, right? But never mind that. Anyway, so I take this shit home, fucking freak out, and I almost pulled out that copy of the Nightcomers. Or the live one I could have pulled out just as well to show a Holocaust record I got for $2. But then I remember that I found this one a few months later on the other side of town at the Daystar Boutique for 50 cents. A Holocaust Heavy Metal Mania 12-inch. I gotta put it in one of these things. It's actually a little tip I got from Scott Waters to protect your EPs that have these flimsy ass covers, is just stick them in a plain jacket, and then you know. So, it's kind of ordinary looking anyway. I mean, that's pretty much exactly what it is, right? Classic record, though. I mean, it's fucking Holocaust, you know? Like, when I talk about how the few records there were that represent the new wave of British heavy metal on LP, the best argument you can make to counter me is Holocaust. Because, I mean, No Man's Land was kind of a turd, but like, the Nightcomers and Live Hot Curry and Wine are just 100% that sound. And also happen to be true with records that I got fantastic fucking deals on. So I hope you all are nice and jelly. That provoked you to, I don't know, gnash your teeth a little bit. Although, what I really hope is that I provoked you to, make a video like this too, actually, because these are fun. Even of course, even if then I'm gonna maul the I paid too much for that one too, fucker, you know. Because I don't like to talk about the ones I paid too much. I felt like I paid too much for, right? You're not gonna hear me talk about how much I paid for my copy of Seven Churches by Possessed, even though it's probably a fraction of what the record would cost now. That's just how it goes. By the way, I almost forgot. There's a channel that I found not too long ago. Sometimes people ask about the shit I put in the background. Sometimes I put shit on because I want to hype it a little bit. This is a podcast called Data Over Dogma, and the guy in the red is a guy named Dan McClellan. Now, funnily enough, I found his channel because there's an old family friend of mine named Dan McClellan, who spells his name in a really similar way, but not quite exactly. But it was close enough that I clicked on his video and I saw it, and it blew my mind. So if you're interested in like, readings of like Hebrew scriptures and that sort of thing, because that's what he specializes in, and sort of understanding the historical perspective and like the way people thought about things at the time, like religion and social organization and hierarchies and law, and just what all these things are, sort of challenging all the assumptions that we bring to a text like that by bringing in our own assumptions from the modern day. If you're interested in something like that, and that kind of sort of something that pushes your thinking about something like that to a place which is further than you thought it could even go. If you like that kind of shit, check out Dan McClellan, man. And the Data Over Dogma podcast is a good place to start. So if you're interested, man, my little public service announcement for the day. He doesn't know who the fuck I am, so. All right, thanks for watching. Always appreciate it. And seriously, I'm joking about y'all like being pissed, but what I really want is for other people to make these things too because they're fun. So hope to see you soon.